They never asked about the burns, not once. Not when I showed up with my left wrist wrapped in sterile gauze, or when I stopped reaching for things with my right arm. They just looked at me like I'd quit something honorable, like I'd walked away from a job that made them proud. I'm Nora Ellison, and in my family, silence wasn't just golden. It was expected, especially from the one who didn't follow the path. My brother Gavin, the doctor, the one with the hospital title and the polished cufflinks, the one who could make mom laugh just by quoting a TED Talk. And me? I was the one who teaches kids how to tie knots. What they never knew, what they never bothered to ask, was that I left the fire department after 17 years because I nearly died pulling a stranger out of a collapsing cabin in Flagstaff. 17 years, 7 medals, one trauma that rewrote my entire body. And not once did anyone in my family ask me why I left. Instead, they whispered about my directionless life. They smiled tightly when I mentioned my survival workshops. They made polite jokes about camping and toasted marshmallows. So I stopped explaining. I stopped hoping. I moved to Austin, rented a small apartment above a motorcycle repair shop, and taught teenagers how to stay alive when no one else could. And I told myself it was enough. Until one night, at a gala I had no intention of attending, Gavin's boss turned to me mid-conversation. He stared for a long moment, and then he asked, "Were you in Flagstaff? The fire in 2016? I froze. He stepped closer. "You dragged me out." "I remember. You told me to stay with you. That was you." The room went still. Every glass paused. Every head turned. And then he said it out loud, clear enough for the whole table to hear. "She saved my life." That was the moment the match struck. Not from flames, but from truth. You've heard their version. Now let me show you mine. Let me tell you what it cost to carry the silence, and what happened when I finally dropped it. The cabin was supposed to be abandoned. That's what the call said. No signs of life. Just another structure engulfed in smoke on the edge of the forest line outside Flagstaff. We were tired. It was our third fire that week, and the air felt heavy with more than heat. But I went in anyway. Protocol said clear it. My gut said check again. That decision changed everything. Inside, the smoke was thick enough to scrape your lungs raw. The wood groaned above me, like it knew it was about to collapse. My flashlight cut a useless beam through the haze. But then I heard it. A cough. Faint. Someone was alive. I found him slumped against the back wall. Suit jacket singed, skin gray with soot, eyes fluttering open. He didn't know where he was. I didn't know who he was. But I knew I wasn't leaving him. I grabbed his collar, threw my weight back, and dragged him across the warped floor. A beam came down behind us, splitting open the ceiling with a roar. My left arm caught a flash of flame, just for a second, but long enough to sear the skin through my gear. I don't remember much after we hit the door. Just the sound of someone screaming, "Go!" And then the blast of fresh air hitting my face as we tumbled out into the dirt. I blacked out before they pulled my helmet off. That fire made the news. 7 people rescued in total. 1 firefighter critically injured, unnamed. That was me. They gave me 11 months of rehab, skin grafts, nerve damage treatment. I spent the first 6 learning how to hold a spoon again, the second 5 learning how to sleep without seeing flames. By the end of it, I could move my arm mostly, but something inside me stayed burned. I didn't go back. No retirement ceremony, no press release. I mailed in my badge with a handwritten note that just said, "Thank you." That was the last time I heard from the department. I moved to Austin and disappeared. Now I rent a 1-bedroom over a mechanic's shop on East 7th Street. I run fire safety workshops at local schools, train teenagers how to survive wilderness situations, and teach CPR in church basements on Saturdays. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. And some days it feels like enough. My students call me Miss Nora. They don't know who I used to be. They don't ask about the scar that curls around my wrist, or why my left hand always moves slower. They just ask how to stop bleeding, how to build a signal fire, how to help someone who's choking. They see me. the way I wish my family had. My parents never visited during rehab. Gavin texted once, just 2 words. Glad you're okay. That was it. No follow-up, no questions. I told myself they were busy, that they didn't know how to handle trauma. But truthfully, they just didn't care to ask. They didn't know about the $250,000 grant from the state. They didn't know I was on the front page of the Arizona Sentinel. And I never told them. Because when someone only sees you as a shadow, even your brightest moment feels like a waste of light. So I stayed quiet. Until one dinner, one gala, one question from a stranger who saw through the smoke. And suddenly, I wasn't invisible anymore. I didn't want to go. The text from my mother had arrived 2 days earlier, cheerful but clipped. Dinner Saturday at Bella Lucia. We're celebrating Gavin's promotion. Come dressed nicely. No stories this time, please. No stories. Like my life was a fiction, a phase to be politely ignored. But I went. I always went. The restaurant was one of those upscale Italian places downtown, all amber lights and polished wine glasses, with a menu that didn't bother listing prices. My dress was plain, off-white, modest. I wore flats, not heels. My left ankle still complained after long days on my feet. My hair was tied back simply. No lipstick, just a neat version of myself. One that might be tolerated. Inside, the Ellisons were already glowing. My father in a sports coat too formal for Arizona heat. My mother in her pearl set, the same one she wore to Gavin's med school graduation. And Gavin, of course, at the center of it all. Sharp charcoal suit, navy tie, and that practiced politician's smile. He looked like he belonged on a billboard. I looked like I belonged at a fire drill. I hovered near the entrance until my mother spotted me. "Nora," she said, moving quickly to steer me with a soft hand on my elbow. "Come, come. There's a seat by Cousin Elliot. And don't forget to compliment Gavin. He's earned this." I didn't get to sit near my brother. Not near my parents, either. They placed me on the far end of the long banquet table, next to an aunt who kept checking her teeth in her spoon, and a cousin who hadn't remembered my name. "Where do you work again?" he asked, halfway through the antipasto. "I didn't see your photo on Gavin's hospital board," I answered evenly. "I run emergency preparedness programs, mostly for schools and local youth groups." He blinked, then smiled. Too wide. "So, like camping safety? Like wilderness survival, CPR, fire evacuation, and trauma response?" "Right," he nodded. "Roasting marshmallows and running from pretend fires." He laughed. So did the woman beside him. It wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was casual. The wine came out. Toasts were made. Gavin stood and gave a speech full of humble brags and careful pauses for applause. Everyone beamed. My mother dabbed her eyes. My father raised his glass twice. No one asked me to speak. The cake was a 2-tiered masterpiece, fondant stethoscopes curling around the base like coiled snakes. As the server wheeled it out, my mother leaned in close. "Let's not draw attention tonight, okay? It's Gavin's moment. Just enjoy the evening." I nodded. I always nodded. Later that night, alone in my apartment, I kicked off my shoes and sat at the kitchen table, still in that same off-white dress. The room smelled faintly of lavender detergent and leftover black coffee. My hands ached from clapping. I opened the drawer beside me and pulled out the envelope. It had never been opened. The check inside from the state of Arizona was still folded in its original sleeve. $250,000 for exceptional acts of heroism. There had been a ceremony, a quiet one. I hadn't gone. I told them I was recovering from a minor car accident. Truth was, I couldn't stand to stand. Next to the envelope was a newspaper clipping. I unfolded it carefully, the creases now permanent. The photo showed me, soot-smeared and on my knees, arms wrapped around a barely conscious man. His face was turned away. Mine was not. I looked exhausted, burned, alive. No one at dinner had ever seen that photo. No one had ever asked. I stared at it for a while. Then I folded it back up, tucked it into the drawer, and turned off the light. I wasn't angry that night. Not exactly. But something had begun to shift. A quiet resentment hardening into something sharper. They didn't see me, but maybe, just maybe, someone else finally would. It was Gavin's idea, of course. He called me out of nowhere, his voice breezy like we spoke every week. "There's a first responders gala next month. You should come. Might be good for you to be seen." I hesitated. "Why?" He gave a rehearsed laugh. "You know, you work in emergency prep too. Plus, my boss will be there. Mom thought maybe you could wear something a little more formal this time." There it was. The real request. Not to be included, but to be polished. Still, I said I'd think about it. I spent 4 nights trying to talk myself out of going. But on the fifth, I opened my closet and reached not for something elegant, but for the old firefighter's jacket. The one I never washed. The one that still held the faint, bitter trace of smoke. If I was going to be seen, it would be on my terms. The ballroom glittered. Chandeliers, string quartets, people in floor-length gowns who'd never held a hose or cracked ribs for CPR. I stayed near the perimeter, sipping club soda and trying not to make eye contact. And then he turned. A man, older, silver-haired, sharp in a dark suit, walked past me, then froze. He blinked once, then again. "Miss Ellison," I nodded slowly. "I'm Dr. Leonard Hale," he said. I think you pulled me out of a fire in Flagstaff, 2016. A cabin. I remember your voice. You told me to stay awake." My mouth went dry. I nodded again. "I've looked for you," he said quietly, "for years." He didn't say anything more. He didn't need to. An hour later, he stood at the podium for his keynote speech. Gavin was seated front and center with our parents. I stayed near the back, behind a pillar. Dr. Hale spoke of resilience, of medical teams and their sacrifice. But then he paused. "There's another kind of front line. And tonight, I want to honor someone who never asked to be recognized." He turned and pointed. Not dramatically, but directly. "Nora Ellison is here. She saved my life in 2016. She pulled me from a cabin I should have died in. She never gave her name. She never took credit. But I remember her." The room fell still. "She received the state's heroism grant, $250,000. I believe she never used it, because some people don't do things to be seen. They do them because they're built that way." I felt every eye in the room swing toward me. Gavin looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. My mother's hand went to her mouth. My father. I didn't bother checking. I stepped forward slightly, just enough to be seen. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I simply stood there, not to take up space, but to remind them I always had. The text came 2 days after the gala. Dinner at ours, Gavin's grilling, mushroom soup, too. Just family. I told myself it meant something. Maybe pride, maybe peace. Maybe they finally saw me. The house looked the same, except for the banner and red paint across the dining room. Our hero. It felt staged. Mushroom soup was ladled into the good china. Fresh bread, warm laughter, almost convincing. Until Gavin leaned in, elbows on the table, tone practiced. "I've been thinking about expanding my trauma research," he said. "It could really make a difference. With the right support." My spoon hovered. "What kind of support?" He didn't flinch. "Funding. A portion of your grant could jumpstart the pilot." And there it was. Not interest, not reconciliation, just extraction. Mom offered a soft smile. "It would be meaningful, Nora, for all of us." I placed my spoon down. "It's not a family resource," I said quietly. "It's mine." The air thinned. The rest of the dinner dragged on with stiff smiles and wine sips too long. Every question carried subtext. Every compliment echoed expectation. Later that night, a bouquet waited at my door. White lilies and roses. No card. Until one slipped loose. "Family is where we return." Another folded note. "You're the light, Nora." Gavin. It felt less like affection, more like control. A week later, he showed up. No call. Just a knock. And a bottle of wine. Too expensive for someone in trouble. He sat without asking. I need help, he said. It's not about research, it's Vegas. I owe 6 figures. If I don't pay, I lose my residency. And if that story gets out, it stains you too. There it was. A veiled threat, dressed as desperation. How much? I asked. 50,000? I stayed silent. Then, if I wasn't the sister with the check, would you still be here? He didn't answer, didn't have to. I can't help you. His smile vanished. You'll regret this. People forget fast. One speech doesn't make you a legend. He left the wine behind. It sat unopened on my kitchen counter, like a promise I never made. And for the first time in years, I realized they didn't want to know me. They just wanted what I'd survived. It started with a post. I didn't see it until someone from the training center texted, "Hey, is this you?" Attached was a screenshot from Reddit. My sister hoards a $250,000 hero grant while our family falls apart. No name, no photo, just a concerned brother. But the language, the phrasing, the guilt-laced hooks was unmistakably Gavin. Within hours, it spread. Blogs picked it up. A local tabloid ran it under the headline, "From Firefighter to Failure Refuses to Help Her Own Brother." The photo they used was from the award ceremony I never attended. My face blurred with soot, eyes empty. Parents began pulling their kids from my program. Emails flooded in. The board asked to review my presence. No one said liability, but they didn't have to. Then came the break-in. I came home to find the front window shattered, glass everywhere. My fireproof safe sat open, papers missing. Inside was a note, scrawled in messy, angry ink. If you don't know how to share, someone will decide for you. No forced entry, no fingerprints. Just the unmistakable feeling of being hunted by someone who once knew your favorite soup. The police filed a report, that's all. I didn't bother saying Gavin's name. Instead, I emailed Dr. Hale. He responded in under 10 minutes. Meet me. I've been watching what they're doing. I can help. The next morning, we sat across from each other in a quiet cafe. He slid a folder toward me. Inside, surveillance photos, forged transfer slips, screenshots of the Reddit draft traced back to Gavin's hospital laptop. I hired a private investigator. He said simply, "After what I saw at the gala, I couldn't let this go." My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. "You can press charges," he added, "or you can let it rot your life." I looked up. My throat tightened. If I go through with this, I burn what's left of my family. Dr. Hale shook his head. "No, you walk out of the smoke." The courthouse felt colder than any fire I'd ever faced. I wore a navy suit, no jewelry, no makeup, no distractions. Just a binder of evidence, and the clarity that comes when you finally stopped hoping for an apology. Gavin looked smaller than he ever had. Shoulders hunched, eyes restless. My parents sat behind him, stiff and silent, as if they couldn't decide who they were there for. The prosecutor laid it bare. Forged documents, falsified bank slips, hallway footage showing Gavin letting someone into my apartment, and the Reddit post traced directly to his hospital laptop. Then came the audit. Over $200,000 stolen under the fake banner of a charitable medical grant. The judge turned to me. "Would you like to speak?" I stood. "I'm not here because I hate my brother. I'm here because silence didn't keep me safe. It just kept me small. And I'm done being small." I looked at Gavin. He didn't meet my eyes. "You didn't destroy me," I said. "You revealed what I've survived." The judge sentenced him. Full restitution, suspension from practicing medicine, and mandatory rehab. No jail. But enough to make him live in the ashes he'd made. That night, I opened the envelope, the one with the grant I'd never spent in full. I used what was left to open the Ember House, a center where teens learned how to survive more than fire, where they learned how to hold dignity when the world tried to strip it away. They came back. Kids. Parents. One boy hugged me after class and whispered, "Miss Nora, are you still scared of fire?" I smiled. Everyone's scared of fire, But when you understand what it burns, you know what to protect. A week later, Dr. Hale showed up with a small wooden box. Inside was a silver ring, no diamonds, just a flicker of flame engraved along the inside. "You saved my life," he said. "Now let's build something together. Something that stays warm." I didn't speak. I just reached for his hand. Later, I found a letter from my parents. "We see you now, and we're proud." I folded it quietly. I was never the smoke. I was always the spark.